Jim, let's start off in your home city of Melbourne. Victorian Health Chief Brett Sutton this morning, he sounded pretty confident authorities will be able to get on top of this latest outbreak. Do you share that faith? I mean, knowing what we do about flaws in the system that have been so widely reported in recent months?
Good afternoon to you, Ash. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope that the contact tracing in Victoria is a lot better than it was this time last year, which led to that very long and difficult lockdown. Now, the government says that it is, but there are gaps in what we know about these latest cases. The one thing I would say is that it's yet another reminder that quarantine hotels don't work, because the fact is that the genomic tracing has found that these came from that South Australian case. A person returned from India, then came back to Victoria. Does not work. And unless and until we get sensible, proper and distinct quarantine arrangements a la Howard Springs in the Northern Territory, the likelihood of the public, A, having confidence that things are going to return to normal and then behave in that way, but B, in the economy genuinely opening up and getting beyond a situation which it has been to date of being dependent on a large amount, billions of dollars of taxpayers' money via JobKeeper and so on and so forth, that's not going to happen either. And you would have thought that it would be in the interest of Scott Morrison and the national government, as well, of course, of the people of not just of Victoria, but of the rest of the country, that we were able to get to a situation where the economy could stand on its own and begin to thrive and take us back to the prosperity that we've been accustomed to and would like to see continuing into the future.
Well, you're right, Jim. I think federal authorities and the government in particular are keen to talk more about vaccines and the rollout than it is looking back at hotel quarantine. And when it comes to that, Jonathan Lee just went through the pros and cons of these vaccine passports. Do you think that is enough of an incentive to get people to have the jab? I mean, for some, it's a pretty controversial idea to have a sort of passport to be able to travel interstate.
Look, I don't think. I think that David Gillespie's right that it will not fly. But I think there are other measures that could be taken which would enable people to be more encouraged to take up the vaccine. And because it's only with a substantial coverage of the population and people getting vaccinated that, again, we're going to be in a position where the economy can start to function as it once did. I'm reminded, by the way, Ash, of what Health Minister Greg Hunt said at the very beginning of this crisis, where he promised that information about what was going on and what the government's response was to the pandemic would be timely, transparent and frequent. Well, as we've seen in particular with the vaccine program, that has not been the case. We're not being told how many vaccines or how many doses are available, where they've been distributed, what is on order, etc., etc. And I think this does undermine public confidence. I think the public would be prepared to accept that there may be problems with the logistics and that maybe on occasion things can't be delivered in the way in which they are promised, that given this is a crisis. But the less information there is, the more the government keeps the information to itself, goes further to undermining public confidence, not only in the government's response to the pandemic, but to vaccines and vaccination itself. It's not exactly the same issue, but it goes to a general principle that people feel they're not being told all the information that is available. If it applies in one part of the vaccination program, it could well undermine confidence in the vaccines themselves.
Jim, just finally on the fallout of that New South Wales State Upper Hunter by-election, we are waiting to hear from the New South Wales Labor leader, Jodie McKay, next hour. It sounds like she'll be staying on as leader. The commentary over the past 24 hours was certainly suggesting otherwise. What sort of fallout do you see for her at that state level and more broadly for Anthony Albanese?
Look, the New South Wales election, from memory, is still a couple of years off, so it may well mean that while Jodie McKay is secure and safe for the time being, doesn't mean that she will be opposition leader come the next election. Look, more broadly, Upper Hunter, I think there are clearly issues of concern for Anthony Albanese in this, but I'm not quite sure whether the commentary hasn't been a bit over the top. Certainly, Labor has a significant and ongoing problem, what I might call the Adani syndrome. It was a problem for Bill Shorten back at the 2019 election. That is that the question of just what you say about fossil fuels, what you say about climate change is a significant problem for Labor, and it did have some indication, some consequences in Upper Hunter, no doubt about that. But in a large field with optional preferential voting, with people with One Nation doing well, and also with the anti-coal campaigner as well, it wasn't quite as bad as it might have been, but it is, and nonetheless remains a significant problem for Anthony Albanese heading into the next federal election.